We keep hearing the terms housing bubble and recession over and over again. And even though the market is shifting, or really has shifted, this does not mean it's a housing crisis. Let's talk about the difference between a recession versus a housing bubble. The word recession is becoming more and more commonly used, and most of us really only have the memory of 2007, 8, 9, where it completely decimated the housing market. And there's a difference between a housing bubble and a recession. They're not always mutually exclusive, and I'm going to be diving into some points and data today that might change your mind on exactly what a recession can do. As I said, that word recession keeps popping up, so let's define it first. According to corporatefinanceinstitute.com, a recession is a term used to signify a slowdown in general economic activity. In macroeconomics, recessions are officially recognized after 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth rates. In the US, they are declared by a committee of experts at the National Bureau of Economic Research. In the US, there have been 11 recessions since 1948. That's roughly one every 6 or so years, according to thebalance.com. Prior to 2007, the average recession lasted 11 months. The Great Recession of 2007 and 8 lasted 18 months, and the shortest recession on record was just in 2020, and it lasted 2 months. When the word recession comes up, we automatically think of the Great Recession, where housing prices plummeted and it took us almost 2 years to recover. So it would be normal to assume that in this next recession, that's going to happen again. But you know what they say when you assume. In fact, a study done by Keeping Current Matters going back to the early 80s shows that in 4 of the last 6 recessions, housing prices actually increased. The key point is that a recession does not equal a housing crisis. And the reason is a lot of people will pull their money from the stock market and they'll use it to buy real estate because it's a safer investment. So as that demand increases, prices increase as well. So what happened in 2007 and 2008 was that a recession was caused by a crumbling mortgage industry. We had a bubble that burst because houses were being purchased way above value, and we had so much inventory that when that bubble burst and those houses went on the market, there was nobody to buy it. Not to mention that if you bought the house for $450,000 and realized, oh my gosh, we have to sell, and you were told you could only get $300,000, you were still in a world of trouble. But right now is different from 2007 and 8 because right now we have very little inventory. Right now, most homeowners have quite a bit of equity in their house. So even if they had to sell for a little bit less, they've paid off enough of their mortgage that they'd still be either to break even or walk away with some money. And on top of that, even if suddenly there was a wave of houses that flooded the market, we still have enough demand to absorb those houses. So the housing crisis that everybody seems to think is right on the horizon, I really don't see it coming. Inventory is too low, demand is still too high. Even if inventory started to rise because suddenly half the population wanted to sell their house, they have enough equity in their house to be able to pay off the bank. So you see, when you're looking at a recession versus a bubble, they're two very different things. It just so happened that the Great Recession was a combination of the two. But while a recession is probably imminent because of the GDP growth we've been looking at, it does not mean that the housing market's going to crumble. So the bottom line is, if you are sitting waiting to buy a house because you think you're going to get it for pennies on the dollar, I think you're going to be waiting a really, 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 really long time. And as prices are rising and values are increasing, so is home equity. In fact, last year, homeowners made more in home equity than they did in their average salary. If you want to know more about that, do not miss my next video. I'm Lindsay Johnson, your resource for all things real estate. See you next time.